Can Canada solve a housing crisis? Well, we've done it before. Canada faced a massive housing crisis at the end of the Second World War. During the war and the Great Depression before it, we just didn't build enough housing.
Created during the stress of war, the world's largest aluminum plant is now building prefabricated aluminum homes.
In the summer of 1945, soldiers started streaming home by the tens of thousands. Waves of evictions followed just as Canadians were headed to the polls. People were forced into tent encampments. The crisis couldn't be ignored any longer. The federal, provincial, and municipal governments couldn't agree on how to house a booming population or who should foot the bill. During the war, a government-owned company called Wartime Housing Limited built homes for soldiers and their families.
The factory-built houses are coming off the assembly line at the rate of 75 per month.
It even developed entirely new communities. Ever been to Ajax? But the federal government didn't want to stay in the home-building business forever. Instead, the feds turned to financing, working with banks to ensure mortgages for returning soldiers while also helping developers pay for new projects. Wartime Housing Limited became the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which still exists today under a different name. But that wasn't enough. Many families still couldn't afford shelter, so the federal government created supports for households on low incomes with young children. This was really the first universal welfare program in Canada, and some of its proponents saw it as an alternative to a large public housing program. As for the provinces, in Ontario, the Tory government agreed with the federal Liberals. It didn't want a big government-run public housing program. Instead, it laid the groundwork for suburban expansion, especially around Toronto. This included passing Ontario's first comprehensive planning law. The City of Toronto, meanwhile, saw things differently. It built the country's first public housing project at Regent Park, which opened its doors in 1949. So, did all this solve the housing crisis? Not yet. In the early 1950s, critics said that Canada's housing backlog had only gotten worse. So the feds went even further, making it easier to get mortgages and subsidizing home builders even more. Ontario used new planning laws to build master planned communities like Don Mills, and federal subsidies targeted these kinds of new developments. Toronto was able to build more public housing projects, eventually getting money from Ottawa and Queen's Park. Success. By 1970, Canadians enjoyed some of the most spacious, modern homes in the Western world. Things weren't perfect, but the crisis of the war years was a distant memory. Could we do this again? Well, let's start by saying there were mistakes that we shouldn't repeat. This includes slum clearances targeting marginalized communities in places like Toronto and Halifax. This also took years of argument and experimentation. When a policy failed, it was abandoned and replaced with something else. Premiers and prime ministers changed, and housing policy changed with them. But it was possible to get 3 levels of government moving in the same direction back then, and it should be possible now. We should try it again, because it worked. Thanks for watching this episode of Nerds on Politics. If you have questions about provincial politics, you can find me on X at JM_McGrath. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, and click anywhere around me for more helpful explainers. See you next time.